Ooh, baby. God of War Ragnarok is an action packed, emotional thrill ride. The game sees Kratos, Atreus, their allies, and even their enemies grapple with the best way to deal with the impending war Ragnarok. While playing through the game recently, I was struck by the evolution of Kratos and Atreus' relationship. In God of War 2018, the relationship is very much centered on Atreus' subservience to his father, whereas in God of War Ragnarok, we see the relationship blossom into more of a collaborative one. Kratos comes to trust Atreus and even allows him to walk his own path. The two become a team in order to fight against prophecy, but there are definitely some twists and turns along the way. So sit back and let me walk you through those twists and turns. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for your spoiler warning. I will be spoiling the events of God of War Ragnarok throughout this video, and I will also be going into some of the main events of God of War 2018. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, Pat, I don't want the games ruined for me. No worries at all, man. Just save this video in your liked videos, maybe put it in the watch later, go play the games, and then come back to the video and you'll understand it so much better. But with that out of the way, proceed as you see fit and consider yourself warned. All right, everyone, with the spoiler warning out of the way, let us get into the meat of the video. Before we get into God of War Ragnarok, though, I think it's important to get a bit of backstory about our characters, starting with God of War 2018. Whoa, 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 I hear you all say. This is a video about God of War Ragnarok. What gives? Yes, I understand that, but if you'll just indulge me for just a few moments here, I think it will enhance your understanding of the events of God of War Ragnarok. God of War 2018 revolves around Kratos and his son Atreus taking Laufey's ashes to the highest peak in all the realms. Now, Laufey is Kratos' wife, or excuse me, was Kratos' wife, and Atreus' mother. Along the way, they encounter many obstacles, and it's very clear that Kratos does not see Atreus as an equal, which is completely understandable due to the fact that Atreus is a literal child. The relationship between a parent and a child is certainly a complex one, and while I'm not a parent myself, I could see why it would be hard for a parent to view their child as an equal as the child gets older. I can only imagine that being a literal god and having a son who is also a god only complicate that situation. Throughout the events of God of War 2018, Kratos is firmly in charge, and they are following his plan on how to reach the tallest peak in all the realms. Kratos may take a suggestion here and there from Atreus, but nothing more. I want to be abundantly clear that I am not criticizing the way that Kratos handles this relationship in God of War 2018, because once again, Atreus is a literal child, or boy, if you would prefer, and it would just feel incredibly stupid for Kratos to follow his lead during the events of God of War 2018. However, in God of War Ragnarok, Atreus is much older and is now able to provide some more, shall we say, constructive plans. The sequel sees the relationship become much more collaborative. Now, the common through line of God of War Ragnarok, for Kratos and Atreus at least, is that they are both trying to just simply protect each other. Both characters saw a mural depicting Kratos' death at the end of God of War 2018, and Atreus is hell-bent on stopping this, while Kratos is more concerned with making sure that Atreus stays safe. God of War Ragnarok begins with Kratos and Atreus attempting to survive Fimbulwinter. It's clear a lot of time has passed since the end of God of War 2018, as Atreus has grown considerably. He's definitely hit puberty in a growth spurt here. And there are several subtle cues that the relationship has changed between the two. The first scene shows the pair loading up a deer on a sled, and before setting off, Kratos puts his arm around Atreus and, dare I say, affectionately asks if Atreus is ready to go. I immediately noticed this tone shift. Instead of Kratos saying something like, "Boy, get your ass on the sled," he asks his son if he is ready to proceed. This is an albeit subtle indicator that the relationship has changed, but the shift will become much more obvious as the story progresses. After returning home, they find that their wolf Fenrir is unfortunately dying. Kratos tells his son to prepare and then allows Atreus some time to collect himself before he buries the wolf. Kratos, exhausted from the events of the day, decides to go in and take a little nap while Atreus does this, and after several hours, Mimir wakes Kratos up telling him that Atreus has not returned, and it has been some time since Kratos fell asleep. So the two set out to find the young god. After some searching, they stumble across a giant bear who attacks Kratos. After nearly killing the bear, the animal transforms back into none other than Atreus. Absolutely bewildered by the events, Atreus suggests that maybe they should find someone to help him figure out what's going on with his abilities. Kratos, however, does not like this idea and becomes rather prickly when Atreus tells him to stop thinking like a father and to start thinking like a general. Kratos obviously does not want to hear this advice, and after the argument, the two go home and they are finally ready to get a good night's sleep. Just kidding, Fat Thor and Odin show up to ask Atreus and Kratos to stay home and to avoid the events of Ragnarok, and most importantly, for Atreus to stop looking for Tyr. Thor and Kratos then have a little spat on the frozen lake of Nine, and Kratos eventually returns home to Atreus. Kratos is, in a word, pissed that Atreus has been searching for Tyr and did not tell him. Atreus, though, wants to show Kratos the shrine that he found and explain why he has been searching for Tyr. Kratos agrees to do this, and this is definitely a slight indication that they are more of a team, but I believe the main reason that Kratos agrees to do this is because, obviously now, Odin and Thor can just waltz into their home whenever they want, so they really have no choice but to do something, and Atreus is the only one with the plan here, so I guess they'll go with his plan. At the shrine, they see the prophecy that shows that Tyr will lead the armies against Odin at Ragnarok. After some discussion, they decide that Tyr is being held in Svartalfheim, and the trio set out to break him out of his imprisonment. The winds are definitely shifting here because Kratos recognizes that they need to do something about Odin. While he is constantly telling Atreus that they are not hiding in the woods, I believe, in fact, they are hiding in the woods, simply trying to stay out of the events of the world in order to protect themselves. However, the events of the world have now come to their doorstep, and Atreus is the only one whose brain is actually working, trying to make a proactive plan. Kratos recognizes this, and that is why he agrees to travel to the land of the dwarves. This would have never happened in God of War 2018, because in that game, Kratos would have told Atreus something like, "Shut up and go to his room." However, since some time has passed, I'm sure that there are things that happened off screen that show Kratos is more willing to trust his son, but it's clear that we are not all the way there yet. Kratos and Atreus have some room to grow here, and that is really what we want as gamers. It would be mind-numbingly boring for there to be no character development, so it's good to see that we have some room to maneuver here. Arriving in Svartalfheim, they do some searching and find the mine that Tyr is being held in. Tyr, though, is not what they were expecting. The former god of war has clearly been broken by his imprisonment and is definitely suffering from some PTSD here, but nevertheless, they help him escape the mines. After they escape the mines, they travel to their new slick safe house provided by Sindri. Kratos and Mimir then share a private conversation where Kratos actually admits he is scared for Atreus, which is frankly incredible work for the Spartan because he is literally talking about his feelings. I believe that his fear for Atreus' safety is what is holding him back from fully trusting his son and working with him as an equal. But as we all know, the first step is admitting you have a problem. So here we have taken another step toward a more collaborative team. Kratos still believes that father knows best, but he is softening a bit on that stance. Atreus does what all teenagers do now and sneaks out of the house. However, most teenagers sneak out to drink beer, smoke cigarettes, stuff like that. Atreus, though, decides to sneak out and meet with Freya, who you might remember is the goddess who is actively trying to kill Kratos. Miraculously, though, she does not kill Atreus and he returns home. Kratos tells his son that they are traveling to Alfheim to continue their search for knowledge. Kratos again does not have a plan, so he's willing to just, bumble along with Atreus and try to flesh out his plan. After they absolutely massacre their way to the top of the Temple of Light, they find another one of Groa's shrines. This shrine shows that Ragnarok will end with Asgard being the only realm that is destroyed, and Odin will die. This is a monumental change to their knowledge, because previously everyone believed that Ragnarok would destroy everything. However, now they know that they can win. Even though Kratos did not know where the quest would lead him by trusting his son, they now have new information that changes everything. This goes a long way in Kratos further trusting his son. Atreus proves himself a bit here because he had an idea and it turned out to be right. This shows Kratos that he is taking initiative and maybe is not the same kid from the previous game who, let's be honest, had about 3 brain cells to rub together when forming ideas. Another important part of the shrine refers to the champion of the Jotnar, which Atreus believes refers to him. Upon returning home, Kratos and Atreus get into an argument about whether or not Atreus is this champion. After a very nice dinner, depending on who you ask, prepared by Tyr, Kratos and Atreus get into a heated argument when Tyr calls Atreus the champion. Kratos is very reluctant to agree that Atreus is this champion because he has not seen enough evidence. Atreus, though, wants to be the champion so badly that he will not listen to his father's calls for patience. Atreus then refers to himself by his giant name, Loki, and this really sets Kratos off. Based on his previous conversation with Mimir, I think it's safe to say that Kratos does not want Atreus getting wrapped up in the prophecy because he is worried that it will put Atreus in danger, which again is Kratos' biggest fear. However, Kratos is forgetting a key point of the conversation with Mimir when Mimir counsels him that Atreus needs to go out and take some risks and make some mistakes. I can definitely understand why Kratos wants to keep his son from taking these risks and making some mistakes because once again, of course, he fears for his safety. But Kratos is forgetting what it's like to be young and headstrong, and Atreus is growing up and he needs to find the answers to his questions. More importantly, though, he needs to find those answers in his own way, not simply by following Kratos' lead. Kratos is also discounting all the training he has done with Atreus up to this point. Atreus is no longer a useless idiot. He is a god who is trying to understand his powers, and he needs the answers that Kratos does not have. Kratos has come a long way up to this point, but still he needs to do some more work in order to see Atreus as his equal. However, his progress should definitely not be discounted. The argument ends in typical teenage fashion, with Atreus storming off to his room and going to bed. While in his slumber, Atreus wakes up in Ironwood, which is the mystical forest of the giants that most people believe doesn't exist. In the forest, he meets another giant, Angrboda. The two have a very nice couple of days where they travel across the area. Atreus learns more about his powers and how to better control them. But he also gets more information on the prophecy and is now even more determined to stop it. Before returning home, Angrboda tells him that he cannot tell anyone about Ironwood because what is keeping it safe is the fact that Odin is not actively looking for it. Atreus then agrees. Next, he clicks his heels together 3 times and he is transported back to the house in the woods, not Sindri's house. No worries though, there's a gateway right outside, so no problem, he can just sneak back through. Oh, just kidding, Kratos is here now. Side note, this is my favorite transition in all of God of War Ragnarok. I mean, it is just so stylish, so well done. I mean, chef's kiss. Kratos then begs Atreus to help him see the plan, but his son simply asks him to trust him. Each of the two characters are absolutely obsessed with keeping each other safe, except neither of them believes that they need the other's help to do so. However, they are both wrong. The only way to avoid this prophecy is by becoming a team and working together. Their conversation, though, is cut short when a wild Valkyrie appears. After fighting for a bit, Kratos discovers that the Valkyrie is actually Freya. I mean, my mind was blown. This was a very cool reveal. Freya decides to stop fighting with Kratos for a bit because she actually needs his help severing the tie that holds her to Midgard. Kratos then sends Atreus home without any dinner, and the unlikely trio travel to Vanaheim. After meeting Freyr, Freya's brother, they find and destroy the spell that is holding Freya to Midgard, unceremoniously separating a Nidhogg's head from his shoulders with an interdimensional rift in the process, which was very cool, I must say. They then travel back to Sindri's. Kratos demands to know where Atreus was for the past 2 days. Atreus, though, is true to his word and does not spill the beans on Ironwood. The conversation explodes here. Atreus screams that it is fine for everyone else to keep secrets, but he's not able to. Which I have to say, as an aside here, he does have a good point. Atreus, though, then pushes his luck by calling Kratos an asshole and tells him that he learned to lie from him. Atreus then storms out of the house and is transported to Asgard. Now, I think we've all been here. You're in a weird phase of your life as a teenager where you're old enough to think for yourself, but you don't have quite enough life experience to make the best choices. So what do? You lash out at your parent, you then storm out of your house you're using as a hideout in the realm between realms, hell-bent on traveling to Asgard to try and trick the Allfather into gaining some information that could be useful in saving your father's life. I mean, this has happened to everyone, right? Like, I'm not the only one this has happened to. I hope not. After his little temper tantrum, shall we say, Atreus ends up in Asgard. When he arrives, he meets with some locals. He then climbs to the top of an incredibly large wall and narrowly avoids being thrown off said wall by everyone's favorite Aesir god, Heimdall. He is not everyone's favorite Aesir god. Atreus then meets with Odin, who sends him on what is essentially a fetch quest to find the missing parts of a mask that Odin believes will give him all the answers. Thor, unfortunately, is sent with Atreus on this fetch quest, and the two travel to Muspelheim. Atreus needs to get rid of Thor for a while, so he tells him to go practice falling down, and Atreus is able to locate another one of Groa's shrines. This shrine depicts Surtur and Sinmara combining in order to create the Ragnarok monster, which gives Atreus another piece to the puzzle. We then leave Atreus for a bit and go back to Kratos, where Kratos, Freya, and Mimir have decided to seek the help of the Norns, who are just basically the oracles of this realm. After some searching and a ride on an underwater horse known as a Kelpie, learn something new every day, they arrive at the home of the Norns. After an extremely annoying conversation with these edgelords, they tell our trio that there is no grand plan, only their choices. Further, because their choices never change, their future is essentially preordained. The Norns also tell Kratos that he will kill Heimdall because the pompous bootlicker will try to kill Atreus. This, in turn, will lead the world headlong into Ragnarok. The advice the Norns give is a catalyst in Kratos being able to realize that in order to change his fate, he has to change his choices. More specifically, he has to trust Atreus. In order to kill Heimdall, the trio take a trip with Brock to meet the lady who crafts Kratos a spear capable of actually hitting Heimdall, since he has this annoying little habit of being able to see the future. After securing the spear, Kratos takes a little nap. And during this nap, he has another dream about Faye. The couple take a boat ride through a pristine Midgard, I might add, with their infant son. Kratos confesses that he is scared for Atreus because he is his father and he has made so many mistakes. Faye, however, tells Kratos that he needs to wake up and that they are not their failures and that they must be better. The conversation with Faye and then the advice from the Norns combine to push Kratos further into realizing that he needs to change his relationship with his son in order to change the prophecy. He needs to adhere to the motto of the first game and be better, because if he chooses not to be better, the advice of the Norns will be proven correct. We then cut back to Asgard and Odin shows Atreus a rift, which is the reason Odin needs the mask so that he can look into the rift without going completely blind. Atreus goes all Duolingo mode on the mask and he's able to translate part of it, and the search turns to Helheim. However, this time Atreus travels with Thrud, Thor's daughter, and Heimdall. During their travels, Thrud and Atreus are clearly growing a nice little friendship here, but they also get into several minor, shall we say, arguments about whether or not Odin is as benevolent as he claims. In Helheim, they find Garm, the giant wolf, and Atreus, being the animal rights activist that he is, frees Garm. Unbeknownst to Atreus, though, the wolf can tear holes in the realms. So, to put it very lightly here, Atreus has made a gigantic mistake. After returning to Asgard, Atreus decides to leave and go back to Sindri's. Atreus essentially creates a gigantic problem here and then hits Asgard with the, "Hey, y'all be easy, I'll see you later." He then returns to Sindri's, and at Sindri's, all hell, no pun intended, has broken loose. After the fight, Kratos and Atreus embrace each other in a very touching scene. The rest of the occupants of Sindri's are berating Atreus for making a mistake, but Kratos takes a different approach. He tells Atreus that he has indeed made a mistake, but they will fix it together. This is the turning point, folks. The two have spent some time apart, and Kratos finally sees Atreus as a teammate and not just a son. Atreus had a plan, and he did what he thought was best, and it didn't work out perfectly, but at least he's trying something. Kratos is now willing to follow his son's plan no matter where it may lead and change their fate. Back in Helheim, Garm has the worst case of the zoomies that I've ever seen and is just running an absolute muck. Kratos and Atreus are able to track Garm and are actually able to subdue him. However, they are not able to contain him for long, so they need a new plan, which leads them to trial several different ideas. They first try Atreus' plan, which, as you may have guessed, is to not kill the wolf. And when that doesn't work, they then try Kratos' plan, which you also may have guessed is to kill the wolf. Neither plan works, however. But Atreus has a light bulb moment. Kratos doesn't ask questions, mainly because he doesn't have time to ask any questions. He simply follows his son's lead. Atreus is able to stab Garm with the knife that, unbeknownst to Atreus, held the soul of Fenrir, which again was their wolf who died at the beginning of the game. By working together here, they're able to arrive at a better conclusion than either of them would have been able to reach on their own. They have now become a fully fledged team. And I just love this scene with Fenrir. It's so cool where Kratos tells him to sit and this just gigantic wolf does exactly what he says. It's very cute and I enjoyed it quite a bit. After the business with Garm has been dealt with, they make a promise to listen for each other's voices when they aren't together. And then in a incredibly touching scene, Kratos even apologizes to Atreus for how he has acted. Atreus then hits Kratos with the best line from the first game, "Don't be sorry, father. Be better." The two have come such a long way from Kratos barking orders at Atreus and simply calling him boy to now collaborating on a problem. They are now truly ready to work together to figure out how to deal with this prophecy. Now that Garm has been subdued, or maybe I should say Fenrir, I don't know. The wolf is no longer tearing holes in the realms, so that's good. But they now have a new problem. Freyr has been captured by the Einherjar in Vanaheim, and they obviously need to free him. However, Atreus is concerned that they are following the prophecy a little too closely for his liking. The moon has been stolen, and this is exactly what Groa predicted. Kratos tells Atreus that they will not turn their backs on those in need simply because it aligns with a prophecy. They will do what is necessary, not because it is written. After traipsing through Vanaheim for a while, they are able to return the day and night cycle to Vanaheim and now can free Freyr from his prison. Freyr is being held in a camp, and when Kratos and Freya reach the camp, guess who is there to stop their entry? Heimdall. Kratos tells Freya to go on and free her brother, and the battle ensues between Kratos and the Aesir. During the battle, it turns out that the spear is exactly the advantage that Kratos needed. Kratos is able to pin Heimdall with the spear, but the cocky bastard refuses to submit. So, in true God of War fashion, Kratos blows his arm off. Kratos then issues a final warning, and that warning goes unheeded, so the two lock horns once again. The battle ends with Kratos brutally suffocating the life out of Heimdall and fulfilling yet another step in the prophecy. The group then rescue Freyr and escape. Back at Sindri's, Kratos informs them that, by the way, he's killed Heimdall and now has Gjallarhorn. The group is well and truly walking down the primrose path of prophecy now, baby, and it appears that Ragnarok is inevitable. Atreus suggests that he should return to Asgard to distract Odin and try to get some answers from the mask. Kratos agrees, but tells his son to remember their promise and then allows him to return to Asgard. Once again, Kratos doesn't have a plan, but he doesn't need one. Atreus has led them fairly well to this point, and the best course of action is for Kratos to trust his son and follow his plan, half-baked though it might be. This is their last option in avoiding Ragnarok. Back in Asgard, Odin, being the all-knowing freak that he is aware of Heimdall's death and even asks Atreus about it, but Atreus denies any involvement and Odin does not push the issue further. Odin then sends Atreus and Thor to Niflheim to find the last piece of the mask, baby. Atreus and Thor retrieve a relapsing Thor from the local tavern, and then he and Atreus head off to Niflheim. In the realm, the two bond? It was shocking, but yes, they are bonding a little bit, but they also find the last piece of the mask. However, there is no time to celebrate because Sif, Thor's wife, appears out of thin air and tells Odin that Kratos has murdered Heimdall, and she even talks Thor into capturing Atreus. But before Thor can get his fat hams on Atreus, Atreus is able to make a quick escape with the mask, and he returns to Sindri's. Once again, Atreus is definitely bumbling his way through and making it up as he goes along, but at this point, he has taken the mask from Odin and has kept himself safe, so I'll give him a B+ for the effort. Now that they have the mask, the group need to plan their next move. Freya wants to go through with Ragnarok, but Tyr has a different plan. Oh, but Tyr, ever the thinker here. He suggests they slip into Asgard, use the mask to get the knowledge they need, and stop the prophecy. Kratos does not want to take any shortcuts because he understands that they come with a price. But Atreus has spent more time with the mask, so Kratos defers to his son's knowledge. Atreus is on board with the plan because it may be a way to circumvent the prophecy. The only problem, though, is that they do not have a way into Asgard. However, never fear, because Tyr tells them that he does have a way into Asgard. Very convenient here. Very, very convenient. They all use Tyr's secret entrance, stop Ragnarok, and live happily ever after. Oh, if only that is how it happened. Unfortunately, it is not. Brock inquires as to why the hell Tyr is just now mentioning that he has this secret way into the realm they all need to get to. Tyr says that Kratos would have gotten them killed and that Loki, alarm bell should be ringing here, Loki needed time to find his destiny. Everyone is all gung-ho and ready to run headlong into Asgard, well, everyone except for Brock. Brock appears to be the only one with a working brain in this moment, and he's the only one paying attention. Brock gets into an argument with Tyr because the details of his quote-unquote plan aren't fitting together. Things escalate and Tyr, or should I say Odin, stabs Brock, killing him. Yes, the all-knowing, slimy bozo has been with our team the whole time, disguised as Tyr. As Brock lays dying, Odin attempts to escape with the mask. Kratos' new spear, however, has other uses besides killing Heimdall, and they are able to keep the mask. However, Brock expires on the floor. Yes, one of the most beloved characters in the entire game, the lovable dwarf, has been killed. Everyone is obviously visibly shaken by these events. However, they can't just stand around. Freya and Freyr begin to make plans to commence Ragnarok, but Kratos sees that Atreus needs some time to process what has just unfolded in front of his eyes. The Spartan tells the Vanir that they're done and that they're going home. Back in Midgard, Atreus decides to hunt to clear his head. Kratos tells his son that he is not weak because he is feeling the effects of violence. Atreus then finds a deer and attempts to take the kill shot, but Kratos stops him. Kratos tells him that they are running from their problems and that they need to stop the bleeding from their wound. Atreus is quick to blame himself, but Kratos is also equally as quick to tell him that that is not true. The only way Atreus could have stopped this is by predicting something that deceived all of them, not just Atreus. They then travel to Tyr's temple to talk to Sindri. Atreus tries to apologize, but Sindri won't hear it. Sindri tells them that he gave them everything, and all they did was take. And now he is left with nothing, because they let Odin into his home. Sindri then tells Atreus that they are no longer a team. Atreus laments that he thought they were Sindri's family too, and Kratos, heartbreakingly, tells his son that they were his family. Now that their group therapy session in the woods is over, the trio return to Freya to begin Ragnarok. Now, they have several things they need to do, however. They need to raise their own armies to combat Odin's, and they also need to find Surtur because they need some help breaking through that gigantic wall in Asgard. Kratos and Atreus decide that they'll go find Surtur, and the rest travel to the other realms to raise the armies. Surtur is in Muspelheim, and Atreus thinks he knows where he is. The prophecy states that Surtur and Sinmara need to join to create the Ragnarok monster. They find Surtur, and he does not want to talk to them, and he states that he will not combine with Sinmara because that will kill her, and he loves her. They are man and wife. He has her heart, and she has his. So Surtur won't sacrifice his wife in order to stop Odin. Surtur then looks at Kratos and says, "Hey, what you got there?" Noticing the blades of chaos, he tells Kratos that the blades have primordial fire in them and that they should be able to turn him into the monster. Atreus, though, is like, whoa, 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 whoa. The prophecy says that the two must combine, but Surtur doesn't think it'll matter. Kratos then stabs Sinmara's heart with the blades of chaos, and Surtur falls into the abyss. After Surtur falls into the abyss, two Valkyries show up. Kratos and Atreus bust their lips and send them packing, and Surtur tells them, or I guess I should say Ragnarok tells them, that he awaits their call. Now, I hear you in the back clamoring that they're following the prophecy here. They're following the prophecy. I hear you. I hear you. And it would be easy to assume that they are following the prophecy here because the main keynotes are the same, but they have made a slight change. Instead of forcing Surtur to combine with Sinmara, they're able to use the Blades of Chaos to achieve the same goal. They are changing their actions by finding an alternate route to creating the Ragnarok monster. Because in the past, they would have just forced Surtur to kill his wife, but they did not do that here. After stabbing Surtur in the heart, throwing him off a cliff, and turning him into a rampaging monster, they then travel to Midgard. Freya believes that they have everything they need to go forward with the war, and she even asks Kratos to be the general of the battle. Kratos, though, is not quite ready for that level of commitment, but he agrees to sleep on it. Kratos and Atreus both have their own separate tents before this gigantic battle, but Atreus is having some anxiety for the battle and decides that he would like to stay in the same tent as his father. But even in that tent, his anxiety will not go away, so Kratos tells him a bedtime story. Kratos tells him about a man who used to carry logs for his village, but he gets too old and he can't carry the logs anymore, so he just says, you know what, I just want to die. But the story will have to wait because Atreus has fallen asleep here in record time. After Atreus falls asleep, there's a real touching scene where Kratos is looking over his son, and it looks like he's holding back tears, but he also looks very resolute, as if Kratos is saying, we are ready for this battle. Kratos then has a dream about Faye picking out the trees for her pyre. So what they're doing is walking around the woods, Faye's slathering Kratos' hands in this gold paint, making him touch the trees so he doesn't forget them. In this dream, though, Faye states that death is a natural part of life and that the culmination of love is grief. Faye then charges Kratos with spreading her ashes from the tallest peak in all the realms. She then flips a line on Kratos from the first game, telling him that to grieve deeply is to have loved fully. Open your heart to it, and you will find every reason to keep living in it. Kratos then wakes up, and it is time for war, baby. Kratos states that he will be their general, and the group traveled to the temple to sound Gjallarhorn. Now, at this point, the group is falling in line with the prophecy on the surface, but Kratos, in a rousing speech, tells them all that prophecy did not lead them to this moment, and it will not win them the battle. They will win this battle because they are willing to sacrifice everything. Gjallarhorn is then sounded, and they are off to assault Asgard. Upon arriving in Asgard, though, they have some issues they need to deal with. The first thing they need to do is destroy the war machines, because these war machines are attempting to destroy the other realm towers, which are allowing our group's reinforcements to enter Asgard. So, pretty important here that we destroy these war machines. The Ragnarok monster then shows up out of nowhere, and Sindri helps them destroy the war machines. Atreus, though, begins to tell himself to close his heart to it, and Kratos asks, "Hey, who are all these people that were controlling the machines?" Atreus tells him that they were the Midgardians that Odin took in. Kratos then realizes that Odin put them in their path to die. Atreus tries to justify it by saying that, hey, this is war, and wars are won by those willing to sacrifice everything. I mean, that is what you just said, Kratos. Kratos tells his son that Atreus feels their pain because that is who he is, and he must never sacrifice that. Kratos even goes so far as to admit that he was wrong. Atreus should open his heart to their suffering, and today they will be better. They did not come here to sacrifice the innocent. Kratos then changes the plan by telling the rest of the group that, hey, we don't need y'all. Me and Atreus will breach the wall at Hrimthur's Flaw, and that we're going to be enough. We don't need all these reinforcements past the wall. Kratos is being flexible with the plan here. Atreus has led them this far and is relying largely on what his father has taught him when he's planning his next move. However, Kratos sees the error in his teachings and is able to tell Atreus that, hey, I was wrong. We need to change our choices here. With the help of the Ragnarok monster, they would easily be able to breach the wall and probably win the war. However, this would involve the slaughter of countless innocent lives. This is exactly the type of plan that Kratos would have been on board with prior to his awakening in this game. The type of plan where the ends justify the means, no matter how horrific those means might be. Instead, Kratos is able to trust his son now. Kratos sees that he and Atreus are now equals. They are both incredibly powerful gods, and together as a team, they can achieve spectacular things. Instead of worrying about his son's safety, he now sees Atreus as an asset. While breaching through the wall, they pick up Thrud. On their way to Odin, Thor notices that Kratos has his daughter. Understandably so, Thor believes that Kratos will harm his daughter because that's exactly what Thor would do, and he sees a lot of similarities between himself and Kratos. Thor then punches Jormungandr back in time and descends on the Spartan. Kratos tells Atreus and Thrud to leave and that he trusts Thrud because his son trusts her. The two gods then fight right outside Odin's front door. Kratos, though, keeps telling Thor that, hey, we don't have to kill each other, but Thor simply does not agree. Kratos then gains the upper hand, but refuses to kill Thor. Once again, Kratos and Atreus are aligned with the prophecy on the surface. While the main points of the prophecy have come true here, Kratos killing Heimdall, unleashing the Ragnarok beast, etc., the details are different. Kratos only killed Heimdall because Heimdall refused to stop trying to kill his son, and instead of killing Sinmara to create Ragnarok, they used the Blades of Chaos to create the monster. Kratos and Atreus are literally being better by changing their actions. The keynotes of the prophecy may be coming true, but by changing some of the details, they may be able to change the ending. Another key indication that Kratos and Atreus have changed is that they decide not to kill Thor. In the past, Kratos would not have hesitated to kill the god of thunder. I mean, he literally murdered the entire Greek pantheon. And let's be honest, Atreus also would not have hesitated due to the fact that he killed Thor's son in the previous game. Next, Odin shows up and is super pissed that Thor is not trying to kill Kratos. After Thor refuses to kill Kratos once again, Odin, being the nice father that he is, kills Thor. Odin then sends through to Mars with Mjolnir, and Kratos and Atreus fight Odin. After a few minutes of fighting, they're able to gain the upper hand by Freya casting a binding spell on Odin, but Freya is playing with her food a bit here, and Odin is able to escape the spell. Odin and Atreus are then alone, and Odin asks Atreus to put on the mask. Kratos then shows up out of the shadows and tells Atreus, hey, this is your choice. I trust you here. Do what you think is best. Atreus then destroys the mask, and the final fight continues. After hitting Odin with some sweet chin music, they're able to beat the Allfather. Odin then starts blaming them for everything that has gone wrong. He is playing into the prophecy here, stating that he had no choice. But Atreus tells him that he always has a choice and that his choices have led to this outcome. Atreus is finally able to see that by changing the details along the way, they were not simply walking in line with the prophecy, but instead have changed their fate by changing their choices. Odin was also able to change his choices along the way, but continuously refused. That is the difference between our heroes and Odin. Atreus then gives Odin one last chance, but Odin refuses. Atreus then casts a spell and traps Odin's soul in a marble given to him by Angrboda. Kratos, being the nice guy that he is, gives the marble to Freya, but Freya says, you know what, I don't need to destroy it to make myself whole, I'm good. Sindri, though, is a different story. He says, I do need to destroy this marble. He takes the marble, crushes it, and Odin's soul disappears. Ragnarok then shows up to finally destroy Asgard. Freyr stays behind to keep him at bay, and with a little help from Angrboda and Fenrir, Kratos and Freya escape. Atreus, though, is left behind. Atreus then hears Faye tell him that his path is his own, and if he follows it, he will be right where he is supposed to be. After a few tense moments for us gamers, Atreus wakes up safely back in Midgard, and he visits with those who have survived the battle, including Kratos. Kratos finishes the story about the woodcutter, telling Atreus that the old man decided that he wanted to continue his life. Angrboda then leads them to one final shrine, which is Atreus' shrine from Jotunheim. They learn that Faye did not want them to know their fate so that they would forge their own unique path. Atreus then tells his father that, hey, I gotta go, I gotta find the other giants, and unfortunately, I need to do this by myself. Kratos tells him that he must do it and that they survived Ragnarok because of his choices. Kratos tells him that he is ready, and Atreus tells him to remember their promise. With that, Atreus strikes out on his own adventure, but Kratos has one last thing to see. On the backside of the shrine, he sees himself depicted as the god of war for these realms. Freya and Mimir then show up, and the trio set out to clean up the realms and rebuild. God of War Ragnarok at its core is a story about how Kratos and Atreus are able to grow apart and then come back together as a team in order to stop the prophecy that Kratos will die. Throughout the game, the two learn to trust each other while also changing their own behavior. Kratos becomes willing to trust his son instead of barking orders and forcing Atreus to follow his plan unequivocally. Kratos also realizes that while he does not understand Atreus' plan, he at least has a plan. Atreus, on the other hand, grows to understand that his father wants to keep him safe. At the end of the day, the two want to protect each other. Throughout the game, it appears that they are falling in line with prophecy, but the seemingly small changes in their behavior along the way aggregate into a completely different ending for the Spartan and his son, avoiding Kratos' death and saving the realms from the oppressive rule of that bastard Odin. Well, with that, everyone, we have come to the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching today. This video took me quite a while to make, but I really enjoyed getting my thoughts out about this game that I love so much. I played through the entire game on my Twitch channel, and if you're interested in seeing me play through games that I might make videos about in the future, be sure to follow my Twitch, which of course is in the link below. God of War Ragnarok is a really special game for me, not only because, it's just fantastic, but because I was able to play through the game on my Twitch channel with my dad. He never misses a stream, and he absolutely loved God of War Ragnarok, and there's something truly special about playing through a game about a father and son's relationship with my own father. So thank you for indulging my ramblings in this video. If you did enjoy the video, I would greatly appreciate it if you would leave a like, comment, subscribe to my channel, and maybe even tell a friend about my channel. If not though, no worries at all. I hope you all have a beautiful time, and I will see you all in the next one.